Well, that's torture. Hello, everybody. Again, fighting technical difficulties here at the Queenston studios, which isn't really a studio. I almost just broke the internet. Okay, sorry. Busy day here at Queenston. So, all right, we are live. We are here to talk to you about affordable housing. This time, we're going to do kind of like Mercer County breakdown of affordable housing. You guys have questions, obviously, just put them in the chat as we go. But we are going to do a town by town breakdown of affordable housing, sort of talk about what's happening in the market. So this is another edition of Policy and Property live, obviously, and we're talking about how towns in Mercer County have been responding to the state mandate of Okay, we're live again. Freaking torture, I swear to God. The internet only decides to cut out when I'm live on YouTube. So for that, I apologize. But we are live. So we just covered the numbers of affordable housing, right? So now I'm going to talk about key terms. Because again, I think people hear the two words affordable housing and literally beyond that have no freaking idea what they're talking about. So here are the key terms you need to know as a homeowner in Mercer County, potential buyer, somebody who's thinking about like what is the impact this has. So the first thing, prospective units. That is the number of new affordable homes a town is required to create over the next housing cycle, which is 2025 to 2035, right? So we're in that cycle, the next 10-year cycle. Typically through new development or redevelopment projects, meaning they're going to build new housing. Second, rehabilitation units. That refers to existing homes that must be repaired or upgraded to meet affordable housing standards, not newly built. So that's what rehabilitation units. Inclusionary housing or zoning. Builders are required to include affordable homes in new developments, meaning the different price points are built together in the same community. Inclusionary, not exclusionary, which is what got Mount Laurel in trouble in the first place. They said, we're going to build some affordable rate and we're going to build some market rate and we're going to squish it all together. Mixed use corridor areas. So what's a mixed use corridor? It's an area where housing, shops, offices are built in the same place, which lets people live near downtowns, groceries, and transportation, right? Mixed use corridor. Princeton's a great example of that. West Windsor's building a mixed use corridor by the train station. So towns are taking this seriously. I drove through downtown Somerville the other day. There's new construction, literally. It almost like it's in the train station. I think it's Toll Brothers, if I'm not mistaken. And redevelopment areas, what is that? Older buildings or unused lands being replaced with new housing with the goal to be use existing space instead of building on raw land. So there's a place in Princeton that they're converting an office building. There's a number of places in West Windsor they're converting office building. Pennington, which we featured a few weeks ago, that's exactly what they're doing. Rocky Hill, which again is a postage stamp of a town, has a pretty big obligation because of the open space that they have, right? They're building on a farm and like, obviously people were upset about it. Oh my God, don't do that. It's going to ruin everything. Well, it's happening. And the way they're doing it, at least optically, it looks pretty smart. So again, Mercer County, right? We have adopted Montgomery Township. We have adopted Cranberry. We stole Plainsboro. I kind of consider them all part of Mercer County, even though they're not. So, you know, we're going to focus tonight on West Windsor, Lawrenceville, Hopewell, Princeton, Plainsboro, and Montgomery. Happy to do the next towns next week. Just drop it in the comments or shoot us a message if you'd like that. So let's go town by town and talk about what the towns are obligated to build. So West Windsor, 480 affordable housing units. In order to do that, they have to build 1,600 total units because again, only 20% or so of an apartment building or condo building is going to go to affordable housing. So if the town built all of this themselves and said, we're just going to build 480 units, they have to go to the taxpayers to build it, right? Then they have to maintain it, all those things. So Plainsboro, 212 affordable housing units. Now, Plainsboro, I have to really feature this new development that's going to happen in Plainsboro, right on Route 1. It's going to transform a whole part of Plainsboro with housing. Lawrence Township, 320. They're going to rehabilitate 68. Hopewell Township has one of the largest obligations in the county, 543. So what does that mean? They're going to build 1,500, 2,000 new homes in Hopewell. Just is what it is. They're only going to rehab 8 because they just didn't have that many. Montgomery Township, 260, rehab 14. Princeton, 276, rehab 60. So those are the obligations by town. I will post a photo of this on Instagram. So if you don't follow us there, please do, just so you kind of get a sense of it. I'll do the other towns next week. So again, let's chat about West Windsor tonight. They have to build 480 units. In order to do that, they have to quadruple the total number of units to be built because only a small percentage of it goes to affordable housing. So they're obligated to build 480. In order for the town, more or less, not to go broke, in order for this to happen, they're going to let developers build 1,600 units, 1,500 units, whatever. And they're going to portion 480, right, units to affordable housing. So they're going to use inclusionary zoning, right, not exclusionary zoning. And they're going to build an apartment building or a condo building, and a certain percentage will go to affordable housing. What is their strategy? I would say focus on redeveloping existing commercial and office areas, right? And so if you think about the train station, if you think about Route 1 corridor, Carnegie Center, Bristol-Myers Squibb on Route 206 and Province Line Road, 103 Carnegie Center Drive, that's office buildings being converted to residential housing. Carnegie Center is actually very pretty, by the way, if you've never been there. It's a beautiful campus. Woodmont area, that's 100 Woodstone Circle. That's an existing residential commercial area that's going to expand into new housing. The Quaker Bridge corridor, right? They're going to redo commercial development and residential development there. So they're trying to, in my estimation, and I am waiting for the mayor of West Windsor to confirm when he's coming on to talk about this. In my estimation, West Windsor is trying to build where it's already dense, where there's access to transportation, access to Route 1, access to the train, and they're trying to keep the traditional residential areas residential. The 8.4, 2.5 colonial will be untouched. This will change. So again, higher density in commuter-friendly areas, definitely new housing in the train station area in Route 1. And I'd say overall, except for like the traffic and rush hour, limited impact on the other ones. Plainsboro, 212 units, 53 rehabilitation units, 212 new units. So again, they have to build a significant number of units. You have to build like 700 units to get there, 800 units. So again, Plainsboro Village Center, Plainsboro built that themselves, right? They said, we're going to make a downtown out of nothing, and they did, right? Plainsboro Road corridor, so that's through town. And again, older properties are going to be replaced with apartments and mixed-use buildings. Forestall Village, I think, is one of the most exciting projects in the area. Forestall Village, if you're a retail business in there, they don't seem to last. It's like the version of Princeton Shopping Center before the version of it today. So there's no housing. People don't live there, so you have to drive in and drive out to go to a shop. It's not how people operate. They go home, they want to walk to a shop. They're going to build housing around Forestall Village. Let's all bet each other $1 right now on YouTube. I'll bet you $1 that the vacancy rate in Forestall Village and the rents for the landlords in Forestall Village go up because of the housing that's built. Because people will go home, they'll walk over to Bon Appetit, and they'll get some bread. And that's just what's going to happen in Forestall Village. I think that's an exciting project. The Princeton Nursery, Mapleton Road, Ridge Road. So again, Most new construction and a lot of the affordable housing is going to be near existing centers, right? Places that already have density, places that have access to transportation. I would say Plainsboro is doing the same thing that West Windsor is doing. They're trying to concentrate it on areas that can support it. Lawrenceville, 320 prospective units. That's a lot, right? 68 units to be rehabilitated, brought up to today's standards. So they're looking at existing commercial areas instead of going into the Carter Road area, the more rural areas of Lawrenceville, right? So the Quaker Bridge corridor, which is Quaker Bridge Mall, it's dense over there, right? There's old shopping centers, there's big retail areas that are going to be turned into housing. Now, most of the apartments will be built in that Route 1 Quaker Bridge Mall area instead of backwards into the neighborhoods. Liberty Green over on Fontaine Lane. So that's already an existing community that does have affordable housing and market rate homes, right? I think it's going to be the model for the rest of Mercer County. They're just going to build within an existing subdivision. Brookshire area, which is off Princeton Pike, right? Same kind of thing. I think you're going to see townhouses, smaller developments, not large scale projects. So again, I'd say Lawrenceville's strategy is say, look, we have to build it near transportation. We don't have a train station. Let's build it on Route 1. Let's build it in Liberty Green, which is easy access to 295. So their strategy is to not go into the 842.5 colonial areas, is to build it in areas where people can get in and out of and have access to groceries, jobs, the whole thing, which is the whole function behind affordable housing. Hopewell Township, massive obligation, 543. That's a massive obligation. So they would have to build, if the township didn't build a single unit, they would have to build about 2,000 units to accommodate the affordable housing. So Lennar is building in Hopewell Township, Hopewell Park, I believe it's named. There's a massive community building being built, and it's market rate, and they're selling like $1 million. Within that, there's affordable housing apartments. So what's happening? The Route 31 corridor, definitely popular. Pennington Road corner near existing neighborhoods. The Route 31 Scotch Road area, right? That's where they're going to build it. It's already happening. Lennar has a huge development out there. So, Hopewell Township is probably the largest housing requirement in Mercer County. So again, Hopewell Township history is rural, right? It's not, the rural nature of Hopewell Township won't be challenged. It'll just be dense in certain areas. And they already did this. They did this in Brandon Farms. And the people who are probably against the new development, when Brandon Farms was built, they all probably said, Brandon Farms is going to ruin everything. Now you can't buy a house in there. Like it's ridiculous to try to buy a house in there. It's so popular. So again, it's going to happen. It's going to happen in Hopewell Township. It's going to be a few areas, but it's going to be concentrated in a few areas. So Montgomery Township, 260 units, 14 rehabilitation units. So what does that mean? I think Montgomery Township is taking the same tack as the rest of these towns, and they're saying targeted growth in specific areas, not sprawl, like just sprawl everywhere, right? And again, I was at a house in Montgomery Township this afternoon showing it. There was a line out the door of people wanting to move in. So, like, if you think the consumer, if you're against affordable housing or for affordable housing, but if you think the consumer is going to stop going and looking at Montgomery Township because of affordable housing, you can tell the 15 people waiting in line at this house for $900,000 that it's a bad investment. And that is not a joke. I should have took a picture of it. We went in, looked at the house, we went out, I handed the key to the next broker. There was a line of 12 to 15 people up the sidewalk. That was today, March 18th. So Skillman Village is going to get a lot of new housing, shops and restaurant, local services. The Village Center on Orchard Road, that's going to have new housing. So again, what's that going to mean? It's definitely going to mean more traffic in Montgomery Township. Traffic kind of sucks there now anyway, so whatever, but you're going to have more density in 206, Skillman Village, in that Route 206 corridor. So it just is what it is. Princeton made the Washington Post today over affordable housing. Historic town, college town, trying to outrun the history of segregation. Princeton, this liberal enclave of Princeton, Was it a segregationist town? You probably could look back in the history and say, yeah, Palmer Square, beautiful Palmer Square with the Hermes shop, that was the largest African American community in Princeton. They just moved it because they want to build Palmer Square. So yeah, like there is a history of it here. So prospective units, 276, rehabilitation units, 60. I did interview Mark Frieda a few weeks ago as the mayor of Princeton. I think great mayor of Princeton. He's a nice human being. And he said Princeton always had a pretty good track record of affordable housing. And when you do the research they did, kind of hit the skids about 10, 20 years ago. They're back on it. So again, they're trying not to build new neighborhoods all over the place. There really isn't any place to build new neighborhoods. So a lot of the density is going to happen in the downtown. Witherspoon Street, definitely going to be more dense, more urban. So what does that mean? It's going to be more people walking. You're going to see a little more traffic in that area. Nassau Street, why? Because it's the main thoroughfare in and out of town. So if people have to need access to jobs, right? That's what it is. State Road, you're going to see some development on State Road. So what does that mean? It's going to be super concentrated in the downtown, not up Cherry Hill Road, not in the outer neighborhoods where you're cutting down trees and doing all that other stuff, right? So, oh, sorry, there's a question.
All those affordable total units are studio, 1 bathroom, 2 bed, or 2 bathroom, 1 bed, 2 bed apartments, not single family detached. Supply will temporarily glut, and those who own condos may find them less in demand. Yes.
So the question is, if all the affordable housing is condos, is it the basic economic rule of supply? As supply goes up, does price come down? If you look at West Windsor, I will give West Windsor as a market example to answer your question. So in West Windsor, there's about 45 houses on the market total. Million plus to a condo, 45 total. When you take the condos and townhouses out, that drops into the teens. And then when you look basically 800 to 1.5 in West Windsor, it's in the single digits. There are about 27 to 35 condos and townhouses on the market in West Windsor. So the people that bought the townhouses in the train station area just a couple of years ago, they're selling it at the price they bought it at. You haven't seen, to your point, you haven't seen massive appreciation because they built new homes. So when you read about Austin or Florida or all these towns across the country where home prices are falling, it's not necessarily like they're falling just because they feel like falling. They're falling because they're building new homes. A lot of what's being built from the affordable housing debate is apartments. They're not even building condos, which selfishly kind of sucks because then people can't get in and get a peg on the what I call the equity ladder in these towns, right? Because they are expensive and you want to get in and start owning real estate. So the answer to your question, where they are building condos and townhouses, will they glut the market? I'd say glut's a strong word. Will they stall appreciation? In some towns like West Windsor, it's a little bit stalled. Not everywhere, just like some. But the rest of it's apartments. So who's going to be hitting this? Probably, and I don't think for whatever reason, people are not very sympathetic. Landlords, right? So landlords are going to be, and we're seeing this now. I own a property management business, Princeton Property Management Services. You can check us out on the web. My partner, Dominic Canonica, runs that business. And he gave a presentation to us a couple of weeks ago, and we will be doing the same level of data stuff on his channel soon. He said, look, landlords in Princeton and Mercer County are forced with the realization that they have to invest in their unit to make it nice. Because you can't just charge $4,000 for a dump anymore in Princeton. Because if I'm going to spend $4,000, I'm going to go to the Alice or I'm going to go to the Avalon. I'm going to get a brand new construction. I'm going to get a gym. I'm going to live at the shopping center. I can leave my house. I can go get a slice of pizza. I can go to McCaffrey's. It's a pretty good deal, right? So I think the glut, for the most part, is going to be in the rental market. So I think you're going to see rental prices slow down. I think in some towns it will soften. In Hopewell, where they're building a decent chunk of townhouses, could you say that the townhouse equity is going to slow down? Yeah. And the sellers in Brandon Farms that own existing townhouses, They just probably won't be able to put it on the market with a 30-year-old kitchen. They're going to have an upgraded kitchen. They're going to have to stage it. They're going to have to paint it. Landlords are going to have to paint it. So it all comes out in the wash in the market, but we are seeing like that effect in the market, mostly I think in the rental market and the townhouse market in West Windsor. And again, any question you have is a great one, so thank you for asking it. So again, when you look at, so every town has a different obligation. One of the messages I want to send tonight, every town has a different obligation. Every town in Mercer County, from where I'm looking, and Montgomery was part of the lawsuit, part of the 30 some odd towns in New Jersey who went all the way to the Supreme Court. Montgomery was part of that. They were party to that suit. They were suing to stop this law. It didn't stop them from having an affordable housing and development plan. As a matter of fact, I think they've done an amazing job. So some are rezoning areas, some are focusing on near transit, right? But each town is trying to meet the mandate without altering its identity. So how does this work, right? So when you think about it on a timeline, 2025, the plans are adopted. If zoning changes have to happen, that's going to happen. It'll take a few years for all the approvals to happen, right? And then let's just say 5 years or so, that it'll start being developed and you'll start seeing housing go in. Some towns are ahead of this. They have housing going already. Some are a little behind. They have to get ahead of it. But you'll see the construction happen in probably 2 to 4 years once all the zoning and stuff is done. So let's go to the predictions part of the show. So part of Policy and Properties, I end every show with my opinions on what all of this means. And we don't just talk about affordable housing, we talk about other things, but the first thing I will say, I don't want to forecast these as negative forecasts, but there's going to be an infrastructure sticker shock. So what does that mean? A lot of Mercer County's towns, especially towns like Hopewell, Robbinsville, West Windsor, they weren't necessarily designed for high density, right? So now you have much higher density towns, which is fine. It is what it is. They need more water. They need better sewer systems. They need a better electrical grid. So if any of those towns are at capacity, and I have found it hard to research that, I'll be honest, right? The cost of upgrading that will fall to the existing homeowners. It is what it is. It's just the way it works, right? So you're not just talking about building apartments or housing. Can the 50-year-old sewer lines handle 200 new neighbors? These are things that the towns have to take into account. They're usually taken into account in the deals they do with the builder. That infrastructure gets baked in, but if they missed a minute, that could happen. So another issue, right? And this is a big bugaboo in New Jersey because, again, I posted the other day on something, and by the way, I don't even look at social media anymore, but I did post on something about, wow, New Jersey schools are really good. And it was like, man, I got vilified for it. So school enrollment, people, I would say, are afraid because the schools are such a draw here. So when I was in Montgomery Township, new buyers, they're renting. They asked a very pointed question that I'm not legally allowed to answer. What's the best school district, Montgomery, Princeton, or West Windsor? I just referred them to niche.com and say, look at the scores. I said, it doesn't mean anything. It's you and your kid, ultimately. I said, it's the difference between Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, these schools, right? So there's a fear that these large multifamily developments will bring an influx of students. Let's just call it what it is. Overburdened schools. The schools then have to go back to the town, raise the taxes, get more money, build more schools, and it becomes this vicious cycle, right? Because the schools in New Jersey are funded by local property taxes. About 50% of the taxes in Princeton go to the schools, 40% West Windsor go to the schools. So current residents are worried that their tax bills are going to skyrocket because of this. So there are studies to the contrary. So I will cite one specific study. It's called School-Age Children in Rental Units in New Jersey, right? A Rutgers professor did it. Morris A. Davis in 2018. And what he found was interesting. And what he found was if you build an 8-4, 2.5, 8-room, 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath house, McMansion, you're pretty much guaranteeing you're bringing kids into the school district. So it's sort of like this. I live in Princeton. They knock down, a beat up Cape Cod. They build a 3,500 square foot, 8-4, 2.5, maybe 8-5, 3.5, multi-million-dollar house. Well, guess what's filling the 4 or the 5? Parents and kids. If I build a 1-bedroom apartment that somebody that makes $75,000 to $90,000 is eligible to rent, guess what's not filling that apartment? Kids. So there is math out there that shows that the abject fear that all this development is going to screw up the schools, it's a little overblown. I can't say I know that mathematically, but again, Google school-age children in rental units in New Jersey by Morris A. Davis. Pretty interesting. I did read it this afternoon to get ready for tonight's episode. So it's a perception versus a fact, basically is what I'm saying. So let's talk about another perceived negative, traffic and suburban character. So, if you live in, look at it like this. Mercer County has bottleneck areas, right? If you live in Princeton, it sucks to get out of Princeton. Alexander Road, Lower Harrison Street, 206, what else? River Road? I don't know. They all kind of suck. It is what it is. You kind of know that coming in. So it's not like you can complain about it after the fact. It's like buying an SUV and complaining about your gas bills. Don't buy the SUV. I live in Hoboken if you don't want to commute to the city from here. So it does already have bottleneck areas. So you could say that stacking units in these areas, Princeton, downtown West Windsor, Princeton Junction, isn't that going to just create more traffic? Yeah, I'd say so, probably. But the house you live in, you know what that did when they built it? It created more traffic. And that's the one thing I always like to say, like, your house, somebody fought against. The house you live in, somebody said it was going to ruin everything. So there's a sign on Mercer Road, and it says 250 cars a day going this way into the seminary development. It's an important point. There's going to be more traffic. But what they're not saying is that people were already doing it anyway because they were employees, they were already living on the campus. So, there's going to be more. There's no question about it. New Jersey, despite the the negative connotation on the world, is a great place to live. So again, let's talk about other predictions. So I do think the office to housing pipeline is going to peak, meaning like I do think over the next 10 years, Mercer County as a whole will probably lead the state in terms of underutilized office park or zombie malls, if you will, or like underutilized malls into mixed use communities. I was reading an article. I just joined Costco, so I'm all about Costco. And I was reading an article that Costco is building housing on top of Costco's. I don't know. If you're a Costco fan, that's a pretty cool gig. You just walk downstairs and you walk downstairs for a half a gallon of milk. You get 42 socks and a PlayStation 5, and you go back upstairs and your life's pretty good, right? That's what Costco does. So municipalities like Hamilton, Lawrence, West Windsor which have had large corporate corridors, you're going to have, grayfield redevelopment. You're going to have housing redeveloped in those parts. Is housing better or worse for traffic than commercial? Let's call it net even. I don't know. So I think it's going to reduce the concept of what sprawl the fear of this affordable housing sprawl, right? And I got to tell you, the only baseline I have from this, Princeton Shopping Center is where businesses went to die. Like if you wanted to close your business, you took a lease at Princeton Shopping Center, and you're pretty much, it looked like you're out of business in 6 months. Other than Nino's Pizza Star and McCaffrey's, everybody else struggled there. They built an apartment complex to the north, an apartment complex to the south. Can't get a parking lot. It's got restaurants. I mean, the whole thing's different. It's got like gyms and other gyms coming. The whole thing's different. You know what changed? They built housing. The other thing I will say for the next 10-year cycle for affordable housing is that missing middle housing boom. Because again, the next 10-year cycle incentivizes more than just large apartment complexes. If you don't know what an ADU is, write it down, accessory dwelling unit. Princeton and Pennington they already amended zoning in Princeton. Princeton's very clever about it. They're selling like hotcakes in Princeton. There was a meeting the other night, 25 residents went to the meeting to learn how to build an ADU in their backyard here in Princeton. So what does that mean in towns like Princeton or Pennington or any other towns that legalizes ADUs, right? Some of these suburban neighborhoods are going to shift to multi-generational living neighborhoods. Is that a horrible thing? So what does that mean? I live in Princeton. I'm 54. I know I look like I'm 30, but I'm 54. I want to downsize. I want to stay in Princeton, but I don't, where am I going to go? I don't want my big house. I'm going to live in an ADU. And I'm going to rent my big house. I'm going to have income because I'm a senior. I'm going to sell my big house. I'm going to cash out and I'm going to live in my ADU. So it just gives people flexibility. So I think you're going to see that missing middle housing boom a little bit in Mercer County. The other thing too, you have to understand that Mercer County is a hub, right? Princeton University throws off $3 billion a year in economic activity. So if I work at the university and I make $90,000 a year, I'm entitled to affordable housing if I'm a single person, right? So affordable housing, when you think about it, it's going to kind of work like a workforce retention tool. I won't have to move to Florida. I don't have to go to Georgia. No offense, who wants to live in Georgia, right? So these essential workers who are priced out of the market can stay. Not that complicated. Think about it. Is it positive or negative? I guess it depends on your point of view. And I'm not taking sides. I gave you some negatives. I'm giving you some positives. These are my predictions. So I think it's going to sort of work as a retention tool for the human capital that runs these businesses, which is human beings. Employers need human beings to run businesses. And if they can't afford to live here, they're going to move. If they can afford to live here, they will stay. It's that binary, right? And I'm an employer. I think about these things. So the impact of the brain gain, and creating brain gain and workforce stability, I think increased housing supply might stabilize the local labor market. Instead of coming here to start and then going off somewhere else, right? They'll come here to work, they'll stay, they'll commute, they'll do their thing. And again, when they live and work in Mercer County, you know where money? Mercer County. Just go to the shopping center on a Saturday night, packed. 3 years ago, Deadsville. You know what changed? Housing. And again, it's not like, oh, Josh, you're selfish. You spy. Those are apartments. I have nothing to do with them. I don't rent them. I've been in the Alice twice because I had a customer move in there. They're nice. So another thing that I think are going to happen is I think the era of the towns fighting this, even though there are private residence groups, like there's a private residence group in Princeton, and God bless them. They have every right to do whatever they want in court. I'm not saying they're wrong and I'm not saying they're right. I don't care because I'm not going to shape the policy. I'm just here to talk to you about it. I do think this whole litigation era is going to die down. This already went to the Supreme Court to a very conservative judge, Scalia, who grew up in Hamilton. He threw it out, basically threw it out of court. So I think you're going to see legal challenges between developers and some towns, less and less towns, more private people, if they can afford it, right? There's definitely some groups in Princeton. Again, knock yourselves out. But by 2030, the dust will settle there as well, right? So this new 2024 state law streamlines the process, right? Which allows fewer builder remedy lawsuits, which is good. Like, who wants your town being subject to being told what by a builder? And I think the towns are going to focus on more town-led, more strategic, more planned growth. So I think it's going to be less like sue, lose, catch up. Everybody's losing. I'm not taking sides on this. It's not that I don't care. I do care, but like, I don't shape policy. I'm just going to talk about it. So everybody keeps losing in court. So I think they're just kind of like, maybe we shouldn't spend money suing. Maybe we should hire a planner and like not pave over that farm and let's build housing where people can get in and out of here. And I think that's what's going to come once you get through there'll be some bumpy litigation over the next 2-3 years, private groups, some towns, whatever. And I'm not saying the town shouldn't, like, if the state says you owe 400, the town should fight it. They get it down to 200, right? Because it's expensive for the town too. I'm not saying any of this lightly. So I think it's going to go from combat to planning. Like, I really do. I think these towns are going to go from fight mode to plan mode. And I just think you're going to see better design projects in Mercer County. So again, it's not like it's a light thing. So if one apartment brings one kid, it's $20,000 a year to educate that one child on average in Mercer County. Well, right, 10 kids is $200,000. It's a lot of money. It's got to come from somewhere. So I don't say any of this lightly. I'm just saying it's happening. I'm going to talk about it. Let the policymakers and the lawyers litigate it, and we'll see what happens. So open it up to questions, and I apologize for the internet disruption earlier. And if there's no questions, obviously, we will call it a night. So I apologize for the internet interruption earlier. Thank you for tuning in. Next week, I'm happy to cover the other towns in Mercer County. We did just buy a new internet system, so hopefully we won't go out. But again, I'm Josh Wilton. Thank you for watching. This is the Wilton Report. See you next week.